Hello everyone, Willow Wishwalker here, and I am very excited to be continuing this. I have not done it in like a month or so, but we are here back again with chapter 4, and it is called The Meeting.
I stood in front of the mirror that hung in the master bathroom, loosening my tie, then tightening it. Sweat rolled off my forehead like bullets as I tried my best to clear my head. Alright, it's just a meeting with the Veil Dynasty. Nothing to worry about. Patting my forehead dry, with a wash rag, Raven peeked her head in. Alaric just called and said for you to be ready in 10, she said, not in a questioning way, but more so as if she was issuing an order. It was in such a way that I would be damned before I'd disobey. I nodded as I resumed getting ready. 10 minutes, I added. Raven nodded, once more. Then left me. After dressing, I made my way to the living room, just as there was a knock on the door. Alaric was there with his usual cool demeanor, waiting for me. I opened the door, holding my hands open in a welcoming gesture. He shrugged in response, waving his hands to welcome me. I nodded, beckoning him in. He walked in, closing the door behind him. As I moved, Alaric quietly walked behind me. I turned, seeing him gesticulating as he spoke. Alright, I was going to wait until you were done getting ready. We have a big meeting today, he added, twirling his finger back and forth, his hands sweating profusely. I asked, confused. What the hell did he mean by we, whatever it was? I could tell the man was as nervous as I was. Yes, now let's be on our way, shall we? I rapidly nodded in agreement, then, opening the door for him, both of us heading towards his limo. The driver got out and opened the door for us. Alaric got in first, then, horror filled my face. There, next to his wife, sat my sister. What exactly was Aurora doing here with us? Well, don't just stand there, we only bite a little, Elena laughed, then, rested her head against Alaric's chest. Alright, I scurried inside the limo as the door was shut behind me and sat across from my sister. I simply cannot wait for our little cafe rendezvous, Elena. Aurora popped the silence that held heavy in the air. I jolted forward as the limo took off for the cafe that the ladies would be dropped off at. Ah, yes, the women will be dropped off and have their fun day as us men talk about business. Alaric playfully nudged my side with an elbow and laughed as I awkwardly smiled. The rest of the ride was silence before we came to a stop at the cafe. Bye-bye, Tata, Elena waved us and blew kisses as her and Aurora exited the limo. My heart raced and my mind clouded. I now sat alone with the most powerful ringleader of the infamous Crimson Casino. I remember about 10 years ago, his grandpa got arrested for laundering money from a branched-off casino. He was the first one to go to jail, which at the time didn't make sense to me until later on I found out that it wasn't even close to the large amounts he was really making. Even now, I still don't understand how he manages to stay so rich and stay so incredibly powerful for this long behind bars. So what are we going to talk about? I asked as I looked to Alaric, still trying to keep my composure. Alaric looked me over and smiled, the perfect combination of arrogance and confidence, with a hint of why bother. I wasn't sure if I should push it, but I decided to ignore it. I have a proposal that you won't be able to refuse, he said with a hint of malice in his voice. Well, what is it? I asked, knowing it was something bad. You'll have to agree to it before we discuss anything else, he said with that taunting tone I was expecting. With a heavy sigh, I decided to play along and entertain him. Alright, I agree. But just so you know, I don't trust this, I said, pointing to my chest with a finger. Alaric looked taken aback by my remark and his mouth hung open. He quickly caught himself and regained his composure. I'm flattered that you don't trust me. But just so you know, I'm like a bloodhound when it comes to a target, he said with a grin. I just laughed it off and he continued, alright, let's hear your proposition, I said, keeping a smile plastered on my face. He took a deep breath and then started. I've been having some problems with my casino, you see, he stated. It's not really anything major, but lately I've been seeing things disappear, he said with an air of frustration in his voice. He paused for a second before continuing. I can't figure out why they're disappearing or how they're disappearing, but I am pretty sure I've got a traitor in my organization, he said with a look of dread in his eyes. After these disappearances happened, it caused me to put some extra security on the place. But that's a short-term solution, he continued, sounding a bit down. So you see, I need to find out who it is. But it will have to be done very carefully, he said with a small grin. I was hoping that you could help me, he said, with a gleam in his eyes. I studied him for a moment, trying to discern exactly what his motives were. Alaric, you're really grasping at straws here, I said with a wry grin. You know as well as I do that I don't trust you at all, I said, smiling warmly. Alaric smiled back and replied with a subtle smirk. True. But I think we could find common ground, he said, trying to change the subject. What I'm trying to say is that, in exchange for your help, I'll do something for you, he said, trying to sell it. I didn't know exactly what he wanted me to do, but I was willing to humor him. Okay, what is it you want me to do? I asked, trying to keep my cool. He smiled and threw his hands up in the air, as if in defeat. Alright, here's the deal. I need you to do a stakeout this Thursday and catch this thieving traitor, he said, with a wink. I looked him over and questioned him. What are you going to do with this traitor? I asked, not sure if I was comfortable with the idea. He just smiled and sat back, taking a sip of wine that sat beside him. Alaric's nonchalant response sent shivers down my spine. The casual way he took a sip of his wine spoke volumes about the ruthlessness that likely awaited the unfortunate traitor. I know I shouldn't get involved. The Crimson Casino was a den of iniquity, and Alaric was the viper at its heart. But the alternative, refusing him, sent a cold dread through my body. Alaric wasn't known for his patience, and his cryptic comment about being a bloodhound hinted at a darkness I didn't want to tangle with. Several options swirled in my mind. I could play along, pretend to help him find the traitor, all the while searching for a way to expose his entire operation. It was a risky move, but potentially the most rewarding. Or I could try to reason with him, convince him to find another way to deal with his missing items. However, considering the desperation in his eyes, that seemed unlikely. Another, more cowardly option, was to simply refuse and face the consequences. But what were those consequences? Alaric wouldn't stop there. He'd find a way to make me pay, and with my sister, Aurora, seemingly woven into this mess somehow, that wasn't an option either. Taking a deep breath, I decided to buy myself some time. Alright, Alaric, I began, my voice surprisingly steady. Let's say I agree to this little stakeout. What exactly am I looking for? Because from what you've described, these disappearances sound pretty impossible. Alaric's eyes narrowed at the last part, and he stiffened as if he had been insulted. They're not impossible, he said quietly, one eyebrow quirking upward, and you know it. You were just having trouble grasping the concept. No, I wasn't, I snapped. That's the thing, I do know it. And I'm not having trouble grasping the concept because I have the physical capability to do something that you can't. When it comes down to it, I don't feel like you should have the advantage over me. I think I have the ability to do this. And I should be the one deciding whether or not I can handle this task. Alaric stared at me for a long moment, his eyes narrowing further, before he finally shrugged, a wary look crossing his face. Fair enough, he said, an air of reluctance rising in his voice. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to check in on you every now and then to make sure you are doing your job. I shot him a skeptical look and then frowned. Are you actually going to do that? Alaric gave me a flat look. If I feel like you need a checkup, I'll give you one, he said coldly. I glared at him, not appreciating his tone. I'm perfectly capable of doing this task myself, Alaric. I said as clearly as I could manage, and I won't have you doing things like that for me. By the tone of the conversation, I could tell Alaric had already taken my hint of the acceptance. He took a deep breath and released it slowly before continuing. Fine. But make sure you let me know if anything out of the ordinary happens. And so with that, I shook his hand, muttered a quick yes sir as Alaric signaled for the driver to return to the cafe. I had a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach that things were about to go wrong.
And there you have it. That is chapter 4. I'm pretty excited to go forward with things that Corvus will be doing in not the next chapter, but the chapter after that, because I got a little bit of a flashback, because you guys are gonna see stuff in Aurora's point of view in the next chapter. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.